True funny. So I get asked how I master my vocals and that quite a bit, so I'll give you a real quick rundown here. That's pretty much what a verse looks like. See this top file, there's my main. These two are my backings. I always do two backings, whānau. And I'll tell you why when we get down to it, but I get two backings. And this third one's like little ad-libs, like, yeah, little sound effects you make. But, yep. So, first thing, I suppose, you don't want to be making your vocals peak. You've got to keep an eye on these pitches here, man. You don't want them all like squaring off there. That means it's way too loud. This is actually quite loud. It's a bit loud, but oh well. That's the main vocal anyway. So what you want to do, see that S on the side, that means solo. So I'm going to turn it off on those ones so you can just hear that main vocal.
Yo, hey yo, an OG is in the building. They call me AZ. You wanna mess with Madhouse? You got to be crazy.
That's actually produced. I'll show you what it sounds like without those things. Without any production. This is the rawness.
Yo, hey yo, an OG is in the building.
Doesn't really sound too bad, eh? Now I use one of these things. It's called a pop shield. That stops the P's and B's fucking up the audio, making it sound ugly. This thing at the back's called a reflection shield. It stops sounds bouncing off a wall. It sort of cuts back your need to have actual soundproof booth. It's a cheap option. But yep. Back to the vocal. So the first thing in my chain is the de-esser. That takes out all the high pitched S's. You know, like it can nearly sound like a fucking whistle if you're not careful. So I'll turn that on. We're watching it. Now I've got mine down to 20 at the threshold. That's that. See where it actually grabs the S's? It's only bringing it down to around 3. You don't want it limiting the S's right down to where you sound like you got some sort of silly lisp. That's the first thing. You want to de-ess it first and foremost. Second one's Equalizers. Now, your voice sits between 100 and like right up to 16,000 up this end. So what I've done here is I take out the bad notes. Like see at 230 here. In the 230, that's a low range. If I boost that right up so you can hear what it sounds like. Can you hear that? You want to get rid of that. So you maximize any one of these, just maximize them fully so it goes up and just go back and forward till you hear where it's worse. So you hear that noise? It's all down there, usually in the low end. But yep, we want to drag those down, not by much, about 5. You're getting rid of the bad notes. And then there's a huge one there at 5. You can see where the big parts are. So once you've done that for the first time, because you have to do that a couple of times, it takes out the bass, all the banging in that. Even if you're like walking around in the room or something, it takes away any bangs and stuff when you do that. It's like low cutting. After you've got that, I want a compressor. But did you hear how that kind of just dropped the volume a bit? Like this compressor, I've actually got it way up too high because it's limiting right up over, I only really want it between 3 and that 5 up there. So I'm a little bit high with that. And what that's doing is taking these high peaks a bit and dropping them down just a tad, it's sort of squeezing it all together. And then the next compressor I grab brings the noise back up, but now it's bringing it all back up in that level one that I just cut it down with the last compressor. So I'm onto that compressor now to raise it up. Now when you've used compressors, it kind of brings up the bass again, so you want to EQ it again. Same thing, go back through, raise up all the, you get like 6, you can add more or less I think with these, but yeah, just go through and look for those horrible notes, it sounds like it's distorting hard. Keep boosting them up till you hear them, then cut them down. Now you got all those done. I think that's called, there's a word for that kind of equalizing. It's like, eliminating, whereas this next one I'm going to add. So this is my Q10 equalizer, this one. That's my fancy bugger. Comes with the Waves Diamond bundle, and yep, here's where you just listen to it and you lift up parts, you know, this ends your high end, that ends your low. I've cut it down there. The vocals don't go past 100. The human ear, the human voice doesn't produce it below there unless you're a Barry White bastard. But, you know, and I don't mean that as racist. I mean, you know, Barry White with that low voice. But, see, you know, I've got a little bit of a raise in the high end, so it gets a little bit more sparkle. Some people might even use an exciter. I don't like those exciters. And then, to top it all off, when I've done all that, I'm going to add a limiter. That just sort of takes the top off. I keep it at 0.4. That way it's never going to peak. You know. And then, down in these things here, these are your buses. Now I use these buses. See, that's my reverb, the Space Designer. And that's all I add on my main vocal is just a little bit of reverb. So I've EQ'd it, compressed it, and a little bit of reverb. You know, and the final product's quite a nice clear.
In the building, they call me AZ. You wanna mess with Madhouse, you got to be crazy.
Yeah. And all I'm going to do is do that same process for my backings. Like I'll record again, these are backings. And I said I do 2 of them. That's so I can pan, which means move this whole line here, the sound to only come out my left speaker, and this one down here to come out my right. So when you hear a background noise, like it doubles up and wraps around this main one. You know, you got to picture your sound as, you know, like a picture nearly. There's your main vocal here and you want your backings to the side and sort of wrapping around. Listen to a real song and get a feel for where the instruments sit, where vocals sit. Try and mimic it. Picture a stage and put the drums in the middle and the guitar is slightly to the left. You really have to position it. It'll stop distortion too if you pan things. That way they're not all sitting on the one note. If you get a word that sits on the same frequency, it'll distort, so you have to slightly either drop a bit of bass from this one or add a bit of higher to that one and then pan it. It just moves them out of each other's zone a little bit. Well, that's the basic thing on my vocals. That's what I do to every vocal. See, my backings have an extra bus. It's not just reverb now. See, you got reverb there, and on that bottom one I got an echo. So there's an echo on there. And I think for the last one I went one step further and added a spread. Now that's so that those little ad-libs went even further in the wide, and because I've only got one, I can't pan left or right. I've only got one, you know, track of them, so I've stereoed it to make it wide. I've made it wide just off of one file, whereas if I were panning these two, give a far better effect. You can really hear them wrapping around vocals. Yeah, and I followed the same process of cutting out the bad notes and boosting the good ones to do that. So that's what the backings sound like. I've cut out all the spaces where I'm not saying anything, because there's just a whole lot of clicking, humbling, mumbling. You might hear the fucking TV in the background in those spots, so cut them out. All you really want to hear is vocals.
Valley of the thieves. I use my own teeth to cut the belly on the beef. I scrap hard ever since I was a little kid. A mischief motherfucker and a little bit illiterate. Problems with authority, I couldn't get rid of it.
That's how I pretty much produce my vocals anyway. That's what the chain looks like. You don't have to use the Waves Diamonds bundle, but take a look at the chain. De-esser, equalizer, a compressor to squash it, a compressor to raise it, another equalizer to clean it up again, and then a Q10 equalizer to add any sparkle or, you know, final tweaking, and then limit it. Then you add a bit of reverb in that in those buses. It's simple. That's all I do. Hope that helps some people that are trying to get a bit of a hand out. Yeah. Pause on that. And save it as a preset. You can come up here. See, I saved them as presets. You can just click on that and save it as a preset. See? Save as channel strip setting as, and then save it, give it a name. I call it my lead vocals. I got one for my backing. Just helps you having to bring up all of those each time. The Waves Diamond bundle's like, fuck, I don't know, 800 plugins deep, so you do not want to be searching for those plugins in amongst 800 of them every time. But yep, Eastside Salute Fun. I hope that helps some people.